This is Amy Bachman, and you're listening to EATYALL Podcast.
Welcome to the EATYALL Podcast, where we discuss the struggles and successes of the farmers, food producers, and chefs who are working to get better ingredients into restaurants today and to ensure their availability in the future.
EATYALL is looking for partners to help us show some love to 500 hardworking chefs. With our Care Package program, you can encourage and inspire chefs who fit your target market. Learn more at eatyall.com/love. That's eatyall.com/love.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Andy Chapman, and we are visiting with David and Amy Bachman from a small town in Oklahoma. You're going to hear all about that and their grass-fed beef business out in Oklahoma. So one thing that I always thought about grass-fed beef was that A, it was tough, or B, it had no marbling, or C, the flavor was off. And we tried a box of their beef, and it blew my mind just opening it. I was literally like, I don't know if they're actually grass-fed. Maybe I misremembered that. But no, they are. And David talks about farming as a lifestyle makes a terrible business, but farming as a business can make a great lifestyle. And you'll find that and so much more from the Bachmans as you listen to this episode of the EATYALL Podcast. Stick around for more beef. Welcome back to the EATYALL Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Chapman, and I'm joined via the Zoom link today, which is not always quite as fun, but we're going to make this up in person eventually. But I'm joined by the family, the Bachman family from somewhere in Oklahoma. Is that correct?
That's right. We're excited to be here.
So I've got David and Amy Bachman. And tell us what part of Oklahoma you guys are in.
I guess you'd say we're in north central or northwest Oklahoma. For somebody who's not around here, I usually say we're between Wichita, Kansas and Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Little town called Deer Creek. Population used to be 100. It's probably less than that now. It's shrinking. And we live out in the country and about 10 or 12 miles from the Kansas border. So it's very flat.
Wow. Yeah, I've driven through Kansas on my way to Colorado, and it felt like it kept going. I felt like I drove through 6 states worth of just flat nothingness.
I always thought, people said that Kansas was the breadbasket. I was like, Oklahoma's the breadbasket. You can't be any more wheat, flat country than where we live. Of course, it's the only place I'd ever been at the time. But that's exactly what it's like if you think about the wheat belt.
So that's great. So you guys are young?
Just a pup.
Just a pup. How long have y'all been into farming, and what do you farm? Talk to us about that.
Well, since I'm young, we've been into farming for 100 years. I'm not sure how to answer that because you're born into it. I was riding on a tractor with my dad when I was 2. I mean, at least since I can remember, probably longer than that. So we're in our mid-30s. I'm 34. And I can remember just leaning my head against the window in the tractor with my head kind of banging as we went across the rough parts of the field, just riding in a tractor hours and hours and hours when I was a kid. I started driving the combine when I was 11 and did most of the combine operation when I was 12 and bought cows when I was 16 and started farming for myself when I was about 18 and did that through college. My dad, he went through the 1980s, which was a really, really tough on agriculture. And so he said, to have a backup plan. I went to college and got a degree in finance with emphasis in commercial bank management. And that was kind of my backup plan. So dad retired a couple of years ago, and just meaning working's optional. So we kind of keep him on as a consultant. He does quite a bit seasonally, depending on what he feels like. And so we do hire some help, and they've been really good to help the situation work. And then Amy does the beef business. I do a lot of the management and strategic financial planning type stuff. And so that's kind of where we're at.
That is awesome.
And I'm not.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I was going to say I'm not from a farming background, so.
That's right. She's a city
slicker. I've been in farming for 12 years, which is as long as we've been married. So,
wow. And so you kind of just married into the madness, I guess, huh?
Yes.
And it is madness.
So what give us and I know and by the way, folks, if you're not following Bachman Farms on Instagram, they're one of my favorite things to follow because every day, even though I'm stuck in a city right now and I don't get out to farms as much as I would like at this particular moment, but I get little snapshots of what's happening and what's being planted and our calves dropping and beef shipping out and all those sorts of things. And we're going to talk more about that down the road. But Amy, what is you guys' Instagram handle for folks who are Instagram users?
Yeah, it's just Bachman Family Farms. So you can search that and be able to find us.
And that's BACH?
Yes, MAN.
MAN. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just the one N, not
yes.
two. Okay.
Not to be confused with the 2 N.
Because
Bachmans or
you got to
Bachmans.
watch those 2 N
That's
Bachmans. They're a whole nother group, and we don't want to get tied up with them. So I guess you guys are kind of the yin and the yang of doing, from what I've learned, kind of both sides of the farm. With David also having we were talking a minute ago about your quote day job of being in the banking world. But what would you say the best part of your job as a farmer is right now?
Such a good question. Man, there's so many things I love about it. With my background in business, I love the value creation, the business side of it. There was a quote I heard, or I read it in an article over 10 years ago. It stuck with me. I don't even remember the magazine or who said it, but they said that a lot of people farm as a lifestyle, and that makes a terrible business. But if you farm and treat it as a business, it makes a wonderful lifestyle. And I kind of took that to heart. And so I try to treat it like a business and do see the fruit of, that good lifestyle and being able to spend time with family. That's a huge part of it. Is I love getting to just work with my dad and spend time with him, for fixing fence or checking cattle or whatever. Getting to connect with him on that is huge. Being able to take, my 3-year-old and go check cows or my 6-year-old, and go climb a tree while we're fixing fence or something. That family aspect is super big for me. The other part is just like the conservation is sort of what comes to mind, but stewardship might be more along the lines of it. I mean, you're you're literally interfacing with the earth. For us, 3,600 acres of the earth's surface and animals, you're dealing with live animals and the cattle, plants. I love just the biology, science, and everything behind that piece of it. So there's just a lot to love there.
And so you guys, we met through the cattle side of your operation, which I know you guys are selling directly to consumers and I think some chefs and things as well. But the cattle operation starts with, from my understanding, the grass operation.
That's exactly right. I mean, the way it all works is a very complicated dance, I would say. It takes a lot of sort of planning to me. I mean, I'm just a country boy and not that smart. But so we farm the 3,600 acres and we have cotton, soybeans, milo, corn, alfalfa. We've done other things like sesame and canola. Probably missing something. I don't know if I said wheat.
Cotton.
So yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we've got all these crops in this dynamic rotation depending on prices and weed pressure and things. And one of the things that I've learned in going to conferences and reading and listening to, new information about agriculture is regenerative agriculture. The idea of not only stopping the degradation of our soils, stopping it and preventing any continuing degradation of the soil, but actually turning that around and rebuilding it, regenerating the soil. So there's this whole thing about that. There's 5 pillars to regen, and I'll forget them, but it's, having a live root 12 months out of the year. So like cover crops, diversification. So that's like crop rotation, including animals or some kind of livestock in the operation. And I'm trying to think what else, never tilling the land, no-till, which is really big for us. So that's kind of how that all started a little bit. We used to just do wheat and then run cattle on the wheat in the winter time, but it's become a whole lot more complex and dynamic. We had done away with cattle and started bringing that back because we thought from a resource standpoint, it complemented what we had. And that's really from a strategy standpoint why we went there. Then the other part is there's another saying, and you might hear two or three because I'm a nerd. The market gets what the market demands. And Amy probably could have told you that's what I was going to say. So as I try to listen to the pulse of the market, there was a book that came out called Wheat Belly in like 2016, 2014. I'm not exactly sure. Gluten is not popular. We're wheat farmers. We're 6 generations of wheat farmers. We know how to grow wheat. We're good at it. And the market said, we don't want your wheat. And, I could get mad about it and be like, well, wheat's good for you. You need to eat bread. But our philosophy is to give the market what the market demands. And the market isn't always nice. The market doesn't really care about your feelings or anything. I think that the market says we want to know where our food's coming from. We want to know that it's safe and that animals are treated humanely. We don't want a lot of chemicals and different things like that. So that idea is really where that came from. And then what really led us into the consumer direct side of it, a friend of ours, she has Faith Farming and Family. It's Caitlin Henderson, Jake and Caitlin Henderson, told us about this course. 5 Marys had put this course on all the steps on exactly how to market it directly to the consumer. So, we kind of put that together with everything that we had, and it just really fit us. We have other friends of ours that sell beef, but they're not doing the grass-fed. Annette Thomas was instrumental in helping us get our certification for grass-fed. And we think it just really fits in with the rest of our program and the conservation and stewardship efforts. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, well, that raises more questions because I love the one of the things about when we tried your beef, I looked at it, and I've had a lot of different grass-fed beef, and people tend to put things in one category or another and go, okay, well, this is a free-range chicken and it all tastes like this, or, this is a feedlot cow and it all tastes, whatever.
Sure.
And I remember, so it's funny because all this kind of ties back with my childhood. My mom told us that one time they had cows about 2 years before I was born that they were raising to take to the market and turn into, freezer beef. And about 3 days before they took them in, the cows got out and got into some like wild onions and all sorts of stuff. And she said that it all tasted awful. And there was nothing that, it was like they still ate it because, that's what I'm one of 7 kids. I don't think I was born then, but I guess they had three kids at the time, and it's just what we have beef. There's nothing wrong with it. It just tastes like onions. And so you learn more about the flavor profile of what the animal is eating, translated into how it turns the greens on the ground into protein. And that's so important in the grass-fed world because, man, I've had some grass-fed beef that I did not like, and it didn't have good marbling, it didn't have good flavor, and I'm like, okay, you can tell me all day long that it's healthier for me, but if I hate the taste of it and the texture, then I'm really going to struggle with it. And you guys have some of the most incredible marbling. The fat just melts into this sweet, buttery nectar. it's so good. The ground beef is tremendous. I guess, maybe, and Amy, you deal with the consumers all day. What is what's your secret sauce with telling the story of that and connecting with consumers and saying, hey, look, yeah, we have grass-fed. That's great. But we also have flavor and the other aspects of that.
I think it's a lot of changing people's minds, because I think a lot of people do put grass-fed in a box of what they assume it will taste like or a bad experience that they might have had previously. And even before we started this, I thought, grass-fed meant it would be tougher. I've heard people say, yeah, like you did, it doesn't marble. And that's just not true if you do it right, if you really monitor what the cows are eating. And Dave's done a great job of researching and providing the best program for the beef to develop the way that makes a great flavor profile. So I think it's a lot of educating the consumer, and telling them, this is how we do it that's different. And we even had a customer contact us that thought we were lying. They're like, no way can grass-fed beef marble like this. And I was like, no, I mean, we can show you all the stuff we do. Like you can get marbled grass-fed beef. It's possible.
Yeah, I think
that's go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I've been to some other grass-fed beef farms, and they're not grass farmers primarily. They just turn them from pasture to pasture, and it's literally thistles and, half-cooked Johnson grass and dandelions, whatever. It's just kind of like whatever's there, that's what they get. And I think when you focus on, like you were talking about, the regenerative part, did I say that right that time?
Yeah.
The regenerative nature of it, then you can get good. I mean, so are they, when you're feeding them grass, are they eating, what is that grass? Is it alfalfa? What are they eating?
I'm excited about this question because there is a lot to it. But to just answer your question of what are we feeding them, there's a lot that goes into it. And what I would say is that making sure that a steak tastes good starts at conception, not even birth, right? Like it's not the last 30 days. It's not the last 6 months. It starts at conception. They've done research and followed steers through that their mothers were given a different amount of nutrients in the second trimester. And that's the only thing different between the cattle, and their health was different. Their rate of gain, their feed efficiency was different. And their marbling graded different in the steaks. So it starts in the cows. And so we have our own cow herd. We've got about 100 cows. And so we try to make sure that they always have plenty of nutrition. For cows, they do sort of get the lesser end of the high value forage. So they're just going to be on grass, regular native grass in the summer. In the winter, they're going to be on regular grass hay, and then about a third of their ration would be alfalfa. And then we'll give them just a generic mineral, it's called salt, potassium, calcium, things like that. Then from birth, they're going to be basically on their mothers until 6-8 months. And then when they're weaned, they're, depending on the time of year, part of the difficulty is that you've got to be continually planting something for cattle to be eating at every stage of their life, right? So you're literally planting all the time so that in 2 months you'll have something fresh to eat. And when that's expiring in 6 months, you've got, so you've got that continual process there. So when the cattle that get weaned, normally the ideal thing for us is like October, November, cattle that are born in the spring or winter, they're going to go on wheat pasture. And it may be as late as, say, December, depending on weaning. So they're going to go on wheat pasture, and they're going to gain from 500 pounds to 900 pounds on wheat, on winter wheat. So that's going to be when it's in just the grass form.
Right.
And then you pull it off before it goes to head. And by that time, depending on the time of the year, they're going to go, like our cattle right now that are in that scenario, we have spring oats planted with Austrian winter peas. And then we went into that in green seeded forage sorghum, mung beans and millet. And so they'll stay on that through the forage as that's putting on forage in the vegetative state. And then we'll either graze it off to where it doesn't make grain, or terminate it and then just keep them going like that. So you've got to have something going all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give away the secret that I heard, and that is that the key to it in a nutshell is to have continually increasing quality of forage for your, steers and heifers that you're fattening. So you can't ever have a gap, and it has to be continually improving forage. We do use alfalfa in a pinch if we have a drought or a period that's too wet and we can't, run them on grass because we haven't gotten it planted or something. And so alfalfa is a really big component to our finishing.
So when you said your native grasses, what does a native grass look like in Oklahoma?
Yep. So there's sort of they call them the four horsemen or whatever. That's part of the tall grass. And then there's the short grass berries. So that's Indian grass, big blue stem. A short grass is little blue stem. There's Bermuda in some of the pastures. Those are going to be the biggest parts of them. There's switchgrass. I'm trying to think of other crabgrass during the summer. There is some fescue in some of the pastures. And so different time of the year, it's different.
I think we can all agree that the past year hasn't been the easiest. Hardworking chefs are rethinking menus and product offerings while understaffed and overworked. Join Eat Y'all as we show some love to hundreds of hardworking chefs by giving them the gratitude they deserve and the resources they need to stay inspired. Learn more about how our care package program can work for you at eatyall.com/love. That's eatyall.com/love.
So those are a little different than what we have down south. I think, some of that's similar, but I know we have some fescue and Bermuda, but probably even different varieties of that make a big difference. What do you aspire? Like, what's your goal with your farm, especially particularly your cattle operation? Like, what are you aiming for? What does success look like?
That's a super good question, and I don't know, Amy, jump in anytime you want to on this. My thought would be, and this is, written down, that we have an enduring great business. So what that looks like, I think, is, growing revenue, growing the number of employees that we have, and impacting our community and employees' lives in a positive way, and providing for options for myself and my family. If my kids want to be able to farm, I want them to be able to do that. And, it might be that, I could see a situation where we have 10 employees, 30 employees on down the road, and maybe instead of 3,000 acres, we're farming 10,000. And the other part, as far as more specifically the beef, my goal there was that essentially I looked back, and I don't remember what the price of cattle was, but I did a budget on cow-calf operation, and it was break even, right? So if you had $100,000 in gross revenue, you would have $0 or maybe like $1,000 in net income. Like, that's not super good.
Yeah, that's not a good investment.
And so, as I got to looking at the business model a little bit more, there were like 7 chains to the supply chain, or 7 links, I should say. And we, a cow-calf operation has 1, a stocker operation has 1. And really there's others, because you've got, a sale barn between each of those. So right now we have 6. This showed up really big in COVID-19 whenever the packers shut down. Meat prices went up, cattle prices went down, which is backwards of what you would think, because that supply chain is effectively broke from a figurative standpoint. And so I really like the idea of being able to control that part so that somebody else doesn't control our destiny. And also, as you get down the supply chain, that's where there's actually money being made. As you get closer to the consumer, that's where value is. And that makes sense. Connections are where there is value, connections to people with people. So I want to have access to those connections and not be 7 layers removed from them. That's my goal.
I'm going to say my goal from the side of the business that I work on is going off of what Dave said, connecting the consumer to their food, to the farmer. People are so removed from where their food comes from and from what they think cattle production or farming looks like. And so I think one of my goals with the business and with our social media accounts and stuff is to give people more of an idea of what our life is like, and that farmers are out to help the consumer, to help feed the world, to, give back to the earth, like Dave was talking about with regenerative practices. Also, I would say a goal is, like I said earlier, to change people's mind about grass-fed beef and about beef in general, that we take care of our livestock, that we raise it humanely, and we're certified animal welfare approved. And, we're raising this and it is a good source of, protein and healthy in people's diets.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And talk about, Amy, you guys do one of the best Instagram accounts. I mean, every day you're posting on Instagram, and I feel like we touched on that a little bit, but talk about your how much work that is for you, and how, do you feel vulnerable? Pretty much, whether you burn the pot roast or you have a tomahawk ribeye, or, you're going on vacation, whatever you're doing, I feel like we get to kind of travel along with y'all. And it's almost like its own YouTube TV show of Bachman Farms, a day in the life. Talk about that.
I mean, we just wanted to share kind of like what our life is like. And I know our life is kind of crazy and different than a lot of other people's, the way they live. And, I just want people to come along. I know there's a lot of negative things I think about farmers or rural America. And I want to show people, who we really are. I try to be vulnerable on there and give them an idea of, just who we are genuinely and how we live our lives.
Has that been an effective marketing strategy for you, or what do you feel like you're getting back from that? Because it feels like I know I post on Instagram and Twitter and things for our company sometimes, and I always feel like it's a lot of work, because it's like I'm trying to do it so well and try to, I don't know, curate some sort of like really good content. And I just feel like you're one of the accounts where people are just naturally just sharing life. What do you feel like you get back from that?
I feel like I've made a lot of really good connections. Social media can kind of be, feel fake or a lot of negative interaction. And I feel like we've been really fortunate to have lots of positive feedback, lots of connections with people saying, "Oh, that's so interesting," or "I want to learn more. I connect with you in this way." And even, some of our customers have found us that way through social media. They say, I really wanted to try beef or grass-fed beef or beef from a farm. And I feel like I knew you more on a personal level that way. And so I've really enjoyed it for the connections that I've made with people. The way we sell beef is, we direct ship it. And instead of having a storefront where you're making connections with consumers face to face, social media allows you to kind of do that remotely.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy, we probably met you through Instagram. What is that accurate? Do you remember?
I think so. When we started in the early COVID, I know I kind of told our team, "Hey, look, we need to find any farm that's selling direct and put them all in one place and see if they're okay with us putting them on their website." And I think that was probably the genesis of connecting with you guys, and then just, seeing the day-to-day of what was happening, and, seeing funny stuff, or seeing, I love like all the, any steak picture is kind of my, whether it's on the plate or on the, in the freezer or about to go on the grill, raw, whatever. I just, I don't know. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So I've always get a huge kick out of that. And so that's probably part of it. And I think our team connected with you guys. And then as we continued to pivot with our Taking Chefs to Farms program, kind of ground to a quick halt during COVID, that kind of pushed us in some ways to connect more with consumers, which I know you guys do a lot of that. Do y'all do a lot of or any work with chefs directly at this point?
And Amy, you can jump in there. We're working with an individual or a company in New York, and I guess they're working on an offering where they do prepackaged meals. And so they have chefs that would make all these meals and different recipes. And so we have offered some options there, and their chefs have taken our product and tried, a half a dozen different cuts to see if there's something that they can make taste really good, that's really healthy, and that fits their price point. And in dealing with you, that's our primary connection to chefs. Other than that, we deal primarily with consumers.
We are back with the Bachman family from Bachman Family Farms. Thanks for listening to the Eat Y'all podcast. What's the biggest misconception that you feel like consumers think one thing about you guys, and you kind of have to maybe educate them on your Instagram or in conversations or emails or various things? Like, what do people think you do that you don't, or vice versa, maybe?
So the first thing I think that is like the biggest misconception is that a farm looks like one of the children's books where you've got little cartoon animals. You've got one cow, one sheep, one dog, one chicken, one duck, and one tractor and a pitchfork. It's not cartoon. And so that's sort of one ideal, like that farming looks like it did 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and cartoon version. The other is that, it's sort of what has taken over is corporate farming, and sort of that there's a huge part of agriculture that is evil. So there's these sort of two extremes that agriculture is sort of this pure ideal industry, or that agriculture is this, evil empire type industry. And we go to church with some friends that are farmers. There's a pretty big percentage of our friends are farmers, and they're just like us, right? Like, I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and a dad and brothers and sisters. We are a family farm, and there's something I learned, and it's actually like a therapy type thing, is that like two things can exist at the same time. And that's the way I look at agriculture, is that you can be a family farm and be incorporated with the state at the same time. Does that make sense? People just don't know exactly what it is. And that's my fault. That is, like, we have done a bad job as farmers at interfacing with the consumer. Like, our marketing department sucks. We can do better. And I appreciate, I love what you're doing, Andy, because that's what we need as an industry, as a food service industry, production and everything. We need to do a better job of just being, real. Like, this is who we are. There's a lot of, there are different kinds of farmers, right? And on both sides of us, we are not certified organic. Like, an organic farm is more extreme in terms of the limitations that they sort of take on themselves. And on the other end is the conventional farm, which some of our crop production is conventional. And, we have lots of friends that are conventional farmers. And so, as an example, corn is the one that's big, that everybody knows about, is a GMO, right? Primarily, corn is a genetically modified. Most of the genetically modified organisms in the United States is shipped to Asia or Africa and literally feeds the hungry. And I don't have a problem with that personally. Like, feeding the hungry is a part of our mission. And, I don't know how you can do that without corn and soybeans, because that goes to feed pigs in China and all kinds of other things. So it's not, the people I know who are farmers that are conventional are not even a little bit evil. And that, I think, is really misconceived by the general public.
So they're not all just money-hungry capitalists?
No.
Pigs?
Yeah. Yeah. They don't hate the earth.
Yeah.
That's probably the
just
biggest
rape
thing,
and pillage the earth and try to get, and then, and that's the funny thing. Like if you're an Uber driver and you just decide to just rag your car out, never change the oil, like just treat it like trash, never clean it. It seems like the obvious thing that's going to happen is it's eventually going to really break down and you're going to be out of business.
Exactly.
Or it's going to be so nasty that you get all 1 stars or 0 stars, if that's possible, and nobody's going to want to ride with you. And so in farming, I feel like your main tool is the ground, even though you got all these other things to tend it. So you got to take care of that. Amy, are there misconceptions that you deal with on the consumer facing side that you're constantly like, here's the number one question I have to answer?
I think one thing is that no farm is the same. Just like you can't assume, I'm a mom, someone else is a mom. We're not going to parent the same. Our families are not, no one's family is exactly identical. No business is exactly like, everybody farms in different ways. But I would say the biggest misconception, is like Dave said, I've had people ask me, like, do we have the red barn and silo and we only have 3 cows and, wear overalls every day. And
y'all don't wear overalls every day?
I do have some. Don't diss until you try them.
Look, I grew up on Liberty overalls, and on hot summer days, we would do it without the shirt underneath,
Oh, beautiful.
You could
no
get
shoes?
Well, we always had shoes because you don't want to step in on it. Well, I take that back. There were times when we didn't wear shoes. I can promise you that. But if you're out in the pasture and stuff.
Oh, dude, we went no shoes. We were that level.
You don't want to get the hookworm. That's what, the biology teacher mom would
We didn't know about those yet. Yeah.
She's like, no, you can't be walking around in the.
We're just wormy, I guess.
I'd say the other thing is how much technology there is in farming. I don't think people realize I didn't realize about that, how much technology goes into the seed and the production and the equipment and how many different moving pieces there are. We have a crop consultant. We have like an agronomist that looks at our fields. I don't know, Dave can attest more to this, but we have lots of people that go into, making everything work. We have GPS on our tractors and combines, and that's how they roped me into driving a combine, is because it had GPS, so I could drive it straight. So
yeah, that's an important skill that now is kind of, you could put I know of a 8-year-old that's driven a $200,000 combine. And if that was a Lamborghini,
right?
You would you'd be like, no way. No, you're farming, kid. Get out there and
right.
It's a rain is coming. Get on.
Exactly.
So, and I think I saw on Instagram earlier today that a rain may be coming. So I don't want to tie you guys up for too long this afternoon, but I want to ask you guys the lightning round questions, if we can move into that section. And
let's do this.
You don't have to, you don't have to justify your answers too much unless you feel like maybe you're on, thin ice. But
what about points? Do we get points?
Well,
can we win?
We'll let the audience grade, and they can email us and let us know who's.
I'm nervous.
If you pass, it's a pass fail. So we'll see. All right. So I'm going to start with you, Amy. Biscuits or cornbread?
Ooh, I'd probably say cornbread.
Cornbread, says the wheat farmer. All right, carry on.
Touché.
Yeah, drizzle it with honey.
Oh, and butter and honey. Mm-hmm.
Butter and honey. Yeah.
Dave, you're on team cornbread too.
I'm going to go with if it's and I like both. Gosh, put us on the spot. But yeah, you put butter and honey on there. That is pretty good.
Or the jalapeno cornbread is a pretty good thing too. Even
I'm out on that.
With
you're by yourself.
You can throw butter and honey on that one too. All right, favorite. Okay. All right, so favorite barbecue. You got brisket,
head country,
pulled pork, chicken, ribs. You go to a barbecue joint? What do you get?
Ribs.
Yeah, I'd say ribs too.
I feel like
the others are great too, though. Yeah. Barbecue's wonderful.
And so ribs, that's fun. All right, if you could have dinner with any 3 people, living or dead, who would you invite over? So I guess y'all get a total of 6 to come to the Bachman house to have some ribeyes.
I'm going to go with my grandpa, Ed, to begin with. He died when I was probably like, let me see here, 5. And he was a great businessman and a great farmer, disciplinarian. So he would be the number 1. Amy, you go. I got to think.
I would say my grandma. She passed away when I was probably in 6th grade. And I would say my second person would be Dave's aunt. She was very influential in our lives and our marriage early on. And she passed away from cancer several years ago. So I'd love for her to see us now. Talk to her now.
I'm going to go with Michael Waddell. It's just the first answer that comes to mind. I'm sorry. He's a deer hunter, and I love archery. He kind of, is what I grew up on watching Realtree road trips.
Is he the bone collector?
Yeah, he is. They do bone collector now. So, I mean, he was like my, I guess maybe an idol or something. And I watched all the Realtree road trips videos and had a signed hat. So
did you ever see any episodes with a guy named Tom Wiley? This is a rabbit trip.
I saw them all.
Tom Wiley started Flextone Game Calls, which was duck calls, deer calls, and he designed, I believe, the Bone Collector series, like Grunt Combo Call.
Okay,
and he's a friend of mine. I used to do all his website work back when we were.
I would know him if I saw him for sure.
So anyhow, Tom's all up in the that hunting world, and so I'm working for and with him on that project. I got a little taste of some of those things, and
very cool.
Hunting is hunting and the people you meet. I mean, it's really awesome to do that. So
yeah.
All right, Amy, you got anybody else?
Oh man, no, Dave, do you?
Well, you got to throw Jesus in, right? I mean, just, I don't know.
Yeah.
You've got to.
It'd be interesting to see if he would eat ribs or not.
He was Jewish, so they might have to be beef ribs.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Joseph because he was a master of economics. Old Testament, the 7 years of bad crops, and man, he bolstered liquidity, and then Egypt owned the world. So I love the economics. From that story.
He really, really did. And I've read that story I read it again, I don't know, probably 6 months ago, and I was fascinated by the way that he just absolutely genius. I mean, it was like he bought all the gold he could, and there was massive inflation, and he was like, guess what, guys? I could buy anything.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I mean, and if you knew exactly what was going to happen, not only did he know that, but then he was like, and this is what we're going to do. And it was not complicated. He's like, we're just going to save 20% of our crop. I'm like, oh my gosh, And then Egypt was wealthy.
Yep, man. All right. Favorite cut of steak?
Ribeye.
Are you tomahawk folks? Like put the bone in there?
I love the tomahawk, man. It's just awesome. Looks so cool. And I do think it tastes a little bit better, like right along the bone. I like it.
Are y'all medium?
I'm okay with boneless ribeye.
Are you medium?
Ribeye is my favorite.
Are you medium rare, medium folks, or what do you do out there?
Yeah, I'm a medium.
Medium.
I converted Dave to medium.
I used to be a well done. I hate to admit it, but blood scared me.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it did me too. And I went working with chefs I'd be like, well, just give me like medium. They're like, I tell you what, I'm going to do medium rare plus. And so I went like down just a little bit. And now I'm like, sear the crud out of the outside of it.
There you go.
Then whatever the middle is great. It's
going to be fine.
And I love that texture of the seared, the grill marks and all that, but then just melty in the middle is awesome. So favorite cut of steak, we're going with double ribeyes. All right. Favorite place you've traveled?
Zurich comes to mind. Zurich, Switzerland. I tried to open a Swiss bank account because I thought that would be cool, but they had $1 million minimum deposit.
And you forgot your bag of cash.
My checkbook didn't have it, but it was pretty cool. Beautiful.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of where my family is from like the foothills of the Alps, Germany. I guess Napoleon probably ran them off.
Probably.
About 1807.
Yep. All right, Amy, how about you?
I'd say Alaska. We went to Alaska on an anniversary trip for our 10-year anniversary, and it was beautiful. So pretty. You got to see whales and glaciers.
Denali.
Summertime, I guess.
Yeah.
May.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Favorite liquid pairing from your with your ribeye? What are you serving me to drink with the ribeye?
That's a good question. So many good options. What would I serve you? I would say, well, first off, I'm not an expert. I mean, I could drink, milk water or whatever, but probably just a Moscato. And that's not the right thing, but I have a sweet tooth. I love ice cream, and so I'm going to go with Moscato.
All right, Amy.
Yeah.
Now you got to go, Amy.
Man, I don't know. I would say, like, for guests, probably lemonade or sweet tea. But we're just like big water fans. We drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about you? What's your favorite steak and what's your favorite liquid pairing?
I mean, I love, one of my favorite steaks is the hanger steak, which is kind of that tubular.
Yep.
And some people have a hanger that's like, it's more like a skirt steak or something, but I'm talking about it's it's
a true hanger steak.
True hanger, kind of a tubular. I love that thing seared, slice some chimichurri sauce on it. And then I've had some really good cabs, and I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I've had a couple of really great wines that just took the red meat and the red wine, and it was just like this massive, like,
how cool
explosion of flavor in your mouth. Probably the one that rings the bell most is I went to a Morton Steakhouse about 6 years ago, and I had a Artemis 2012 Stag's Leap. No, I think it's called Stag's Leap something. There was a cab that was just, I mean, it was perfect. And I love that.
Awesome.
So that's a pretty good one. All right. So Amy, if Dave gets a call and that says, "Hey, Amy has been arrested," what does he assume you were arrested for?
Speeding.
That is what I was going to say. Yep. Too many speeding tickets.
You do a lot of driving, don't you?
40 over. Yeah.
40 over. In a school zone, that's not that hard.
Yeah.
But if you're out there, what is the regular speed limit? Like 70 out there? 75. So if you're doing 40 over in the Suburban,
you're governed out.
It cuts off. Does it cut off at 110? What time?
I used to cut off at 100, but that was when I was a teenager. Okay. So I don't know.
You hadn't tried that in a while. That's good. All right. So, Amy, if Dave is arrested, of course, he is the banker. So are we going embezzlement? Are we going embezzlement or no? What are you thinking?
I think it would be like confronting someone for trespassing or something like he did.
I was thinking altercation with neighbor.
Property line disputes. Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Good one, Amy.
I feel like this is almost like the dating game because we don't always get to do husband-wife combos like this. So it's almost like, survey says, and then everybody wins there. All right. So if a year from now we meet back up and have another podcast and we have a bottle of that Stag's Leap or some fantastic lemonade or whatever beverage is your favorite, what are we celebrating that you guys accomplished a year from today?
I would say that we're selling 100% of our production to consumers. So in other words, not as stocker cattle or feeder cattle. So we're selling them all retail, so to speak. That would be incredible. We're at probably 25% maybe.
Oh, wow. So y'all have a lot of capacity to grow this thing.
Quite a bit.
What about you, Amy?
That's what I was going to say. So, record sales of beef and retired Dave from banking to go to farming.
Now you're talking.
Keep him on the tractor more often.
Oh yeah.
There are worse things. Sometimes I get on the chainsaw and I just, it's not
good.
It's not a profitable endeavor to necessarily to run. I'm not like cutting pulpwood or anything, but taking down limbs and taking out trees that are in the wrong place and whatever, even on a city lot sometimes is, or we had a hurricane and I ran the chainsaw for pretty much 2 or 3 days straight and went through several chains and several gallons of mixed gas. And it was just, the phone didn't ring. I don't know if the phone was ringing or not. Didn't matter.
Who cares?
Because you got a chainsaw in your hand and you got trees down and people to pull them and drag them. So it's one of those things that I was like, man, that was fun.
Rewarding. You can see what you did.
You can see what you did. Sometimes it takes, in the digital world in which we live so much, it's hard to go, oh, we did that, because it's like, okay, well, I recorded the podcast and now I have a MP3 file.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yippee.
Can't see it.
Well, if chefs want to learn more about your products and get connected with you guys, what's the best way to do that?
Go to our website. It is BachmanFamilyFarms.com. Bachman is how you spell Bachman. Or our Instagram handle is Bachman Family Farms. What is it? At Bachman Family Farms. And Amy, what's the Facebook? Bachman Family Beef.
Farms Beef.
Bachman.
We say it either way.
I was about to, do a mea culpa because I've been calling you Bachman because it's like Bach, like, Johann Sebastian.
Yeah.
And then you say it back like with a CK and it's a CH.
Yeah. Depends on where you are, what county you're in. People say it both ways.
How do you say the nut that's grown in the southern U.S. that is often used in pies?
Pecan.
What about you? How do you say it?
I say it pecan. But
who says it different?
A lot of folks say pecan or
who says that?
Pecan.
I've never met them.
Well, you're gonna have to listen to the Eat Y'all podcast because there's some folks who, when we did some pecan episodes, there were some pecan folks.
Yeah.
Okay. I could see that.
But that's like South Georgia. There, it's a little more light and bright down there than. And
Georgia folks are awesome.
Oh, well, that's where my family was from. So it's a good state. Good state.
Awesome.
Well, it's been a real treat to visit with you guys. I know y'all are busy working. The rains are coming probably, and there's who knows what else you got to get done today. But thanks for spending some time with us on the Eat Y'all podcast.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for having us. We enjoyed it, and we look forward to sharing a steak here in a year, and hopefully your podcast has grown and everything else.
Well, thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Eat Y'all podcast, hosted by Eat Y'all founder and chief relationship officer, Andy Chapman. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd join us in our mission to save family farms by subscribing and leaving a review. Even better, share this episode and follow us on your favorite social media account at Let's Eat Y'all.